Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to another episode of AltarEd, where we believe that we can be altered in our life, in our circumstance, in our situation, when we present our life as a living sacrifice at the altar of God. It's truly a privilege for me to come to you through this medium, this program. And today, I would like to speak to you about, I want to call it King versus King. Basically, I would like to take the story of two kings and two people in power and how they were dealt by the heavenly God for what they had done in their lives. I would like to take this example from the book of Daniel. First, I would like to talk about this king whose name was Nebuchadnezzar. When we think about the life of Nebuchadnezzar, he is a very interesting individual. He was a guy who formed the Babylonian Empire. He was the guy who formed all the things that Babylon stood for at that point of time. And you know, when we look at his life, whether it be the life of Daniel that he lived in his province, coming in to Babylon as slaves from his own homeland. And we've spoken about Daniel in the previous episodes, but today I would like to explain to you the contrast of how God deals with people's attitudes, so that we can learn from this story on where we are in our life. Coming to the story of Nebuchadnezzar, he was somebody who thought that he was invincible. He thought that he was above everybody else. He thought that he was the most powerful man of that era, and that could be, for the most part, true. But you see that he categorically rejected God and the existence of God above all else. The point that I'm trying to make here is, when you look at the book of Daniel, you see that Daniel is the only one who interpreted the dream without him telling what the dream was. Then, fast forward, his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown in the fire, but they were not burnt. In both those cases, you see that Nebuchadnezzar does not believe that the God of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the one and true God. And that is the main thing that I want to begin our talk with today. See, many times in our life, based on where we are in our life, whether it be with our professional success, whether it be with a business that we entrepreneured and we began it from someplace, or it could be our something that we do as far as our education is concerned, and we start to think that we don't need God. We start to feel that God is not required in this area of my life or in this season of my life. Why is that? Because we feel that we're in control of everything. But this is what I want to start off the book of Daniel chapter 4, where Nebuchadnezzar, God gives one more chance to this king called Nebuchadnezzar. What happens? He sees another dream. He sees a dream, and in his heart of hearts, he knows. Basically, the dream is that a tree will be cut off, which is his kingdom, but a stump will be left, which means that there will still be an opportunity for that tree to grow back. And he goes to Daniel and he asks, what does this mean? And he interprets the dream to him. And I believe that Nebuchadnezzar knew that God was giving him a last warning in his life. God was giving him one last opportunity to accept that God is the true and living God. And you know, many times we may think that, Ranjit, how does this apply to my life? I feel many times that we feel that in situations in life, in seasons of our life, we feel that we're in control of every situation. The problem that Nebuchadnezzar had, which was the problem that many of us have, is that we feel that we are the small God of our life. You know, I will be honest that I try my level best not to feel or think like that. But there have been instances where I have felt that, you know what? I was feeling myself, I'm like, I'm pretty cool, dude. I've achieved, I've done well on my own. And I want to let you all know that that is the beginning of the end of our life. And we see in the book of Daniel that when he talks about this, what is the problem? Daniel comes. He interprets the dream about the broken tree and the stump being there. And I want to turn your your attention to the fact that what he was trying to say, what Daniel was trying to say to Nebuchadnezzar is, even though you have built all of these great things, and mind you, they were big things. Nebuchadnezzar was the only one. His wife was from another land, and she was used to seeing mountains. And you will not believe, if you think about Babylon, that is modern day Iraq. And when you go there, it's the most flattest place that you'll ever see. But Nebuchadnezzar, because he was so powerful and so wealthy, he made mountains in the middle of that flat line. Then he said, then his wife said that, oh, I love gardens. I come from a place that is so lush and green. So what did he do? We all know that he was the one who built the hanging gardens of Babylon. Mountains and gardens. He was so wealthy that he had his own private zoo, where he got animals from all over the world to come there to show his might. And then, what does he say? In Daniel chapter 4 verse 27, he's in the thick of his glory. He's in the thick of his success. But in the middle of all of these hanging gardens and mountains and zoos and animals and all these fancy things, Daniel says in 4 verse 27, he says, King, let my counsel be acceptable to you. Break off the sins by practicing righteousness, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the oppressed, that there may be perhaps be lengthening of your prosperity. Amen. If you've noticed in your life, in Malayalam you call it thanda or pride. When does this pride actually start? It starts when we start to become successful in our life. It happens when we become confident in an area of our life. So today, we see in this story that in the height of his success, in the height of his reign, he says, if you want to increase your reign, stop oppressing the poor people. Be merciful. Be righteous. Because when you think about pride, and it has happened to me many times, when you become prideful, all good qualities of your life slowly start to drain out. Have you noticed yourself when somebody asks you about something, that whether it be media, whether it be information, whether it be church, whether it be preaching, whether it be work, whether it be technology, and you know something about something, you are the first one to refuse. Hey, what are you talking about? Hey, what do you know? I'm telling you what I know. We will see that pride drains out all the good qualities in your life. And today what God is telling you is there is a king who is in the height of his glory. And this is what I want to tell you. That in the height of his glory, he was walking around in his palace one day, with the gardens and the mountains and the zoo and the money and the popularity and the fame. And you know what he says? Verse 29 of chapter 4. God gave him another 12 months. It says at the end of 12 months after he heard the interpretation of the prophecy from Daniel about the tree and the stump, he was at his roof. And this is what he says. Is not this great Babylon, which I have built by my mighty power as a royal residence for my glory of my majesty? Check this out. As the words were still in the king's mouth, a voice fell from heaven. O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, your kingdom has departed from you. My God, I want you to know, as soon as he said that, and I really believe that he didn't necessarily say it, hey, me, King Nebuchadnezzar, on his balcony, I did all this, because he's probably looking at his whole kingdom and he's like, I made all this. I believe that he was thinking about it and he was like smiling. You know what I'm saying? That's what he was doing. And the minute he said that or he thought that, the voice came from heaven and he said, you're done. I want each one of us to know this. You should know, no matter who you are, whether you're King Nebuchadnezzar or Adani or Ambani, doesn't matter who you are, there could be a day that comes in your life where you think that you have arrived. You think that you know more. You think that you're very intelligent. You think that you're better than everybody else. And that pride creeps in. Why? Why is that a problem? You know why? Because Nebuchadnezzar had seen the power and might of the God that we're speaking. He saw it when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire without even the smell of fire in their hair. He saw it when Daniel interpreted the dream. He acknowledged nobody should talk against this people. Nobody should talk against their God. But he still did not acknowledge it. But God tried one last time. And he said, your kingdom has departed. At that very moment, Nebuchadnezzar went crazy for 7 years. And you know what happened? He was living in the jungle that he made for the animals, and he was there for 7 years. 7 years, my friends. It says his hair grew out, his nails grew out. Today, I've noticed many people near, many people far. I've noticed so many individuals who used to have a great business, who used to have a great job, who used to have a great entrepreneurial skills, had great leadership qualities. And there used to be a time when we used to talk about them. Oh my God, look at the house that they're in. Look at the car they have. Oh, look at the clothes they wear. Oh my God, look at the glamour of this individual. And suddenly we hear, fast forward 10 years, that person has come with chappals on the street with no job. I wonder what could have happened. I ask myself this question. I'm speaking to myself here. Because I say, God, let that word or thought never come to my mind or my mouth. Did you understand what I'm saying? Now fast forward, pause that story, because the title of today is King versus King. Now come to chapter 5. Chapter 5 it starts with King Belshazzar. What did this guy do? This king, this is chapter 5, which talks about the last day of the Babylonian Empire. King Belshazzar is ready. He was a partying prince. He loved to party. And you know if you have enough alcohol and women and music and guests, it's going to be a good time. So imagine he's partying. And mind you, this is the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar has been dead a long time when Belshazzar is in power. So what does he do? He's intoxicated. He's taking the alcohol and he's like, oh, I see these cups. But there are some special cups in our storeroom which are from Israel, from the temple. Bring those cups to me. Why? When we're intoxicated, we like to do all the things that we would have probably never done. Then what happens? He calls for those cups. But I believe, I'm paraphrasing here, and it's not written in the Bible, but I assume that when he would have called the servant, go get the cups, he would have said, no, King Belshazzar. No, Prince Belshazzar, don't get those cups. Your grandfather has said, remember when you were a small boy and he took you and you saw these cups were locked away in the storeroom. He said, don't touch these cups because these cups belong to the God of Israel. Never mess with these things. The servant would have warned him, but he said, keep your mouth shut and bring those cups to me. And he brought the cups. And when all his guests and women and prostitutes and all of these people were drinking from those cups, what happened? A finger came and wrote on the wall, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsi. Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsi. And today I want to tell you that was the last day of King Belshazzar. Now, the question that arises here, king versus king. Go back to the story of Nebuchadnezzar now. Now what happens there? There we see, after 7 long years of him growing his nails, there's a verse which changes his life. And those verses are this. Verse 34 of chapter 4, it says, at the end of the days of the 7 years, Nebuchadnezzar lifted up his eyes to heaven, and his reason returned to him. I want you to know the king versus king, Nebuchadnezzar versus Belshazzar. What was the difference? Nebuchadnezzar, in all of his arrogance, God tried one more time to reason with him. And you know what happened? He lifted up his eyes to God, and God gave him one more chance. And Belshazzar, knowing well what those cups meant, decided to defile the name of the Lord repeatedly and repeatedly. And today that's what I want to kind of draw our attention to. We see 2 powerful people. We see 2 people of influence. We see 2 people of power. We see 2 people of great wisdom and knowledge and strength. But one came to the knowledge of God, and one died that night. What I understand from this story is that we all need to know one thing. Good, you have your car. Good, you have your job. Good, you have your security, your positions, and your fame, whether it be small or big, it doesn't matter. Number 1, humility is not words, it's an attitude. Remember that. He lifted up his eyes and saw God again. I want you to know, it says in the Word of God that he was living like an animal. Do you know one thing about animals? Have you ever seen a donkey or a dog or a cow just chilling on the side of the road and looking up to the skies? Have you ever seen that? I've never seen that. Because they're always looking down. God has given the ability only to human beings to look up to the stars, look up to the heaven, and thank God for all the things that he sees around. And when he did that, God changed his life. And that's the same thing. And he says, he blessed the Most High God and praised him and honored him, for he who lives forever. And at the end of the day, verse 37 of chapter 4, it says this is the last verse. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, for all his works are right and his ways are just, and those who walk in pride he is able to humble. Wow. Can you imagine the duality of his life now? A guy who was so self-centered and self-conceited opens his mouth and says, he is the true God. Be humble in the way you treat people when you become somebody. Just because 50 people know you on Instagram, just because you have a following of, say, 1 lakh of people, doesn't make you better than everybody else. Just because you have a master's degree or a PhD doesn't make you in a position to talk down to people. Just because you have a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW or an Audi doesn't make you better than somebody who has a cycle or a bike. Second, I want you all to know, as believers, sometimes we get scared of politics. We get scared of the future of our nation. We get scared about the future of our children because of what is happening, whether it be persecution, whether it be all the things that are happening in the world that we are surrounded by. I want you to know it's true that every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess that Jesus is Lord. There are only 2 options. There was one Belshazzar who died that night with the golden cup that was forbidden to use. And he died that night, and he brought the end of the era of the Babylonian Empire. Because you know why? Because he knew what he was doing. So I see 2 kings where the reality of the situation is that we don't really know when God will judge our wrongdoings. So it's better to be one day early in humbling yourself. And I know without a shadow of doubt that we all fall short on a daily basis. But more than that, we have to understand the attitude by which we live our lives. The attitude with which we conduct ourselves. And that is the most important thing. God can bring kings, rulers, presidents, prime ministers to their knees in his time. So don't you worry, friend. Don't worry on who is in power. You know why? Because God is still on the throne, and he will bring people to justice. He will bring people to the level where he feels fit. So today my question is, are you going to be a Belshazzar or are you going to be a Nebuchadnezzar? Now you may be thinking, I'm not that successful. Well, it's not about success. It's about your attitude towards others in topics that you know about, in experiences that you have better than others. That's what this is about. How are you going to treat them? How are you going to encourage them or discourage them? And this story, king versus king, was a very rude awakening for me to humble myself, actually. of really knowing that, the biggest litmus test of knowing how you are in these situations is when you expected somebody to bow down to you. When I say bow down to you, I don't mean it literally, but you wanted somebody to tell you, oh, you're the best. You wanted somebody to say that, oh yeah, we can't do it without you. We wanted somebody to respond and say that, oh yeah, without them, I don't think this will be possible. That means you think you're somebody. And I've been trying to deal with this myself on my own. Trying to tell myself in God's presence that, God, seriously, we want to be in a position where we are not exalting ourselves above anybody else. Because it's truly you who have elevated us. Like Job, he can give it to you and he can take it away. If you think that you're going to be there all the days of your life, you're sadly mistaken, my friend. You'll be done when he says you're done. King versus king. Pride versus humility. Arrogance versus self-realization. You need to ask God who you're going to be. Maybe you could be like Belshazzar, but you don't know when the end is going to come. You don't know when your business will flop. You don't know when your job, you'll be laid off. Be humble and you will see that God will elevate you. God bless you.